Hello and welcome to another episode of Super Okay, where we try to do a decent enough job to entertain people with our opinions on video games. My name is Dale, and I am joined here by two absolutely full of life human beings. We're going to start with Zando.
I'm assuming that means that the other person is like over 100% life to make up for my lack of life.
Maybe. How you feeling, bud?
I am on day 6 of COVID. So day 6 is going much better than like say day 2.
Right.
But I'm still kicking around. You ain't got rid of me yet.
Yeah.
Good.
That's good. I'm glad to hear you're still around. And yeah, you might be like, what percentage are you at?
Probably like 70.
Yeah, but Mel, what percentage of over-caffeinated are you?
Like 120 probably. I'm like way over caffeinated. I had like my ADHD medication. I had coffee, like 2 cups of coffee. Then I had iced tea, and then I had a green tea, and now I'm having another glass of iced tea. So I'm like jazzed.
Got hopped up on Mountain Dew.
And I also had a mini Mountain Dew. I totally forgot about that. We bought like the mini like 100 calories like Baja Blast Mountain Dew because I never want to drink a whole like Mountain Dew by itself because it's like way too much. And it was perfect.
I love those little things of soda so much because they make me feel like a giant.
Same. I agree.
They're amazing. It's how Zando feels all the time.
It's true. So I hate them because it makes me feel like an extra giant.
All right. Well,
thanks for the spit of cola, I guess.
Spit of cola is such
Where's
a
my 2 liters?
gross phrase. Oh my God. It sounds like a crust punk band. All right. Every week we start with a highlight of the week. It is the thing that made our week a little bit better, a little bit brighter, a little bit nicer to live in. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first? No, I'm going to
No.
go first. I will take Brody's spot today. But I would love to talk about how Zando and I were in the Discord maybe like a couple days ago, and I watched him play Mortal Kombat, and he was like going through tutorials and whatever, and I was like, oh yeah, Mortal Kombat has fatalities, don't they? And he's like, they sure do. And so we went through all of the fatalities for all of the characters, and some were good, and some were like, like it totally could have been better. Like Rain's character is like probably the worst fatalities out of all of them because they're just so boring. But
lame.
I did have one favorite fatality where this character does like this firework move where she like punches the guy and pulls out the entrails of their intestines and then lights the intestines on fire, and it like trails back to the character. And I think its brain, like its whole entire like skull and spine like shoots up in the air and explodes into fireworks and then
That's
rains
amazing.
down with this
Yes,
beautiful purple sparkliness.
That's with Lee May. And just as the intestine line is about to get to like the body, she runs up and does like a crazy like upward
what it
kick
is.
that launches the skull into the sky, and then it just blows up.
I knew I was
beautiful.
missing something. It is great. It's
It
one
wa-
of my favorites.
It was pretty wonderful going through all of these, and like it's how it's always funny when Mel's just randomly talking about murder, like it's like just an everyday occurrence for her. She's like, I just love how the skin just gets ripped off, and just like this very cute, innocent kind of voice. And then this guy's head like gets kicked off his body and blows up like a firework, and I just hear.
Like in Animal Crossing when you do like the clapping emote, that's literally what I did.
That's amazing. You said that one of the fatalities were terrible. Was that Raiden?
Rain.
Oh, Rain.
Oh, Rain.
The purple ninja turned mage. Yeah, it's just like he summons a funnel of water, and then the water just swirls around until the guy melts. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's like both of his are like very similar in that sense. So they're just kind of like, yeah, that's a thing, I guess.
Yeah.
It's funny because if I saw someone do that in real life, it would be fucking terrifying. But in a video game, it's like you probably could have stepped it up a little bit, Rain.
Yeah. Had we started with Rain, it probably might have been different. But we had seen like 8 characters worth of fatalities at that time. including where like Raiden blows a hole through somebody's body, throws them in the air, and then flies through it, and then breaks them apart.
And like it just rains blood, and it's so cool. I love that one too. That was a good one.
By the time we got to Rain, who's like, "Look at my water funnel, guys," we're like, "Cool,
that's a thing."
Great job. Mm-hmm. Participation badge.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Amazing. All right, I want to talk about my highlight of the week, which is a little board game that Ange and I picked up while we were in Massachusetts, called Dinosaur Island Roar and Write. If you guys aren't familiar with the roll and write genre of board games, this is only like the second one that Ange and I have ever played, aside from the one that everyone knows, which is Yahtzee. Yahtzee is basically roll and write. And so all of these games are just Yahtzee, but with more stuff. This one is awesome, though, because you roll a bunch of dice and then you draft the dice, and those dice let you take actions, and you use those actions to build, staff, and then take tours of people through a dinosaur theme park.
Neat.
It's so fun. And so there's like a little grid that you have, and instead of like, in Yahtzee where it's like, did you get a triple? And you just like check the box. Instead, in this one, it's like, did you get enough DNA to make a velociraptor? Draw the velociraptor paddock in your park, and you like draw it, and then you like make the roads go through it. And then if you don't have enough security, the velociraptors can break out and eat your junior scientists and kill people and all of this other cool stuff. And the game is just a ton of fun. We've played it twice now, once on the train back from Massachusetts, and then once we went to Detroit Shipping Co. last night. And I had a Euro, she had some Thai, and we played it outside there. And it's just a real good, fun time. So if you like hucking dice and you like drawing maps of dino parks, I highly recommend checking this one out.
That sounds very cool. I love both of those things, but I don't know if I have anybody to play with.
You got us.
I was going to say, if only Dale liked to play this game he just talked about playing.
Yeah.
If only.
Why aren't we real life friends? We are, but we just don't hang out as often as I'd like.
Yeah, IRL is different than in the Discord.
Oh, for sure.
It's so much easier to hang out from this chair.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Well, my highlight of the week, I guess, is it a cheat to say Sea of Stars again, like the second episode for me in a row? Or can I just say that I finished that game, I got all the achievements, and I absolutely adored it. That was finishing that and just like seeing all the connections and everything was probably my highlight. But if that's a cheat, then I have to say that I picked up Mortal Kombat 1, obviously. Spoilers for Mel. And I've never been a Mortal Kombat guy. I was always like, I would play it at friends' house. I'm like, I just don't get this. Like, I don't understand the appeal of it. It's the gore and everything starting with a K has always just been like overly gratuitous for me. Like, I'm like, this doesn't like it. I get the appeal, but it's like, I feel embarrassed playing it sometimes,
What's funny is I've never been upset about the gore. That's totally fine. But them calling coins with a K and combo with a K, I can't get past that for some reason.
Yeah, I remember currency was the big one for you the other night. KURRENCY.
Currency like that?
Yeah, everything except for anything that has the K sound, they put a K except for corner. Weirdly, in the training mode, they mention corners and it's just CORNER. I guess they're not hardcore enough.
I hate it.
Anyway, I picked up Mortal Kombat 1.
A K.
Right. And it has not been a regrettable purchase. I've actually been enjoying it. I found a character I liked. So the first time I played against Ganon, I played as Geras, who is one of two characters who has a command grab in the game. And I didn't have any fun. I was like, oh man, I just wasted money on this game. This is not feeling good. And then I picked up General Shao, the dude who has a gigantic axe and just hits you hard with it. And I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense for me.
Nice.
And so I've been having fun. I've been going through the story mode, which is really kind of neat. It's very well animated. It's kind of like watching a little mini movie that occasionally I just stumble through Mortal Kombat fights. And yeah, so I'm not regretting spending the money on it. So that's a pretty good highlight amidst having COVID for an entire week and not being really able to be around my kids, which is a hard thing to do. But
for sure.
At least I get to destroy imaginary people with lots of gore, right?
Yeah.
That's the trade-off.
Now, I hear that they have done like major revamping in this game. Obviously, it's a reboot. They're calling it Mortal Kombat 1, and it now has a block button. Is that accurate?
I think Mortal Kombat has always had a block button.
No, it used to just be hold back.
Yeah, there's definitely a block button, and that takes a long time to get used to as a longtime Street Fighter player. But I feel like some of the earlier games also had a block button. But again, I'm not a hardcore Mortal Kombat guy, so I can't say definitively. I can definitively say Mortal Kombat 1 does. And yeah, the block button is a weird thing to get used to.
I mean, as a Soul Calibur guy, I love a block button, so I get it. But yeah, I can see it taking a little bit to get used to. Other things that can take time to get used to are the idea of taking a thing that normally only exists on your television or on your computer and then putting it in your hands and carrying it with you. And that's what we'll be talking about today. We're going to talk about how in 1976, Michael Katz told his engineering team at Mattel to design a new game that was the size of a calculator and use LEDs to display that game. And so, in 1977, they released two games, Auto Race and Football. You may have heard of either of those.
I've heard of the concept of football and auto racing, but I wasn't aware of the handheld games.
Yeah, well, these handheld games were so successful that they turned into a product category that was worth over $400 million, which is $2.1 billion in today's dollars when adjusted for inflation. And it was actually only 2 years later, in 1979, that the first cartridge-based handheld game system came out. And it's the one that we all know, we all love, Microvision.
Microvision.
Yeah, we all love the I'm kidding. That one sucked. It was fragile. It had major tech issues. The screen was like a 1-inch screen. The game library was just as tiny as the screen. In order to change what the buttons did, there was like a film that you slid into the console and you would press, like it would change, like instead of it being like A and B, the button would actually say like, jump, punch, and you could like break through that and break the console. Like what? It was a bad time.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. But just a small 10 years later, the technology had advanced to the point where a small playing card company decided to give it a try, and thus the Nintendo Game Boy was born. And the rest is, as they say, history. So the first question is, did you guys have any of the pre-Game Boy handhelds? Did you play any of the Game & Watches, any of those other type things?
I didn't have any. I certainly didn't have the Microvision or Auto Race or Football. But my brother had Octopus, the Game & Watch game Octopus, where you just kind of dove down and tried to get treasure while avoiding giant octopus tentacles. But I don't know whether or not we had that before we got the Game Boy or not.
But you had it.
Yes.
Cool.
And I did play it.
Nice. Yeah. That is cool. My dad had Football, and he had Video Poker.
Yeah.
Which was great. I had a friend who had the Zelda watch where you could kind of play Zelda on it. It was basically just like see how far you could get into a specific dungeon or whatever. And it was absolutely amazing as a kid in grade school. And then my family also had a few of the like Tiger licensed LCDs. We had Double Dragon. I distinctly remember. I also remember Street Fighter because it used like, a clock face screen. And so you could see all of the lines for all of the different moves. And I distinctly remember like the electricity lines around where Blanca would do his electric charge move or whatever. And then I also remember we had a Ninja Gaiden one. And they were all like minutes of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Honestly, like I have only owned maybe Video Poker as a handheld device, and I played that like crazy. Yeah. And I loved it so much because every single time that you would like win at Video Poker, it would play like this like really catchy tune. And I don't know why, but I was always addicted to like just listening to that sound. So I played a lot of Video Poker back like when I was like extremely small.
Was the song that your video poker played Hamptown Racers?
No.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. No, I don't think it was. Yeah, it wasn't that one, fortunately. Was yours like that? Oh, okay.
The one that my aunt had did Hamptown Racers.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good time.
I got stuck on the pre-Game Boy part of the question. I also had a Ninja Turtles Manhattan Project game that was like that LCD style and Mega Man 2.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
And they were not great.
Yeah. Again, minutes of fun.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So let's skip ahead. Let's talk about Game Boy just for a minute. We've talked about Game Boy on the episode before, but just what were some of your favorite games on there, and what were some of your favorite accessories for the Game Boy? Because Game Boy had some wild ass accessories. I'll go first here because I want to talk about Quirk. That game was absolutely amazing. Somebody was asking for hidden retro gems. I believe it was the Glitch who shouted out Quirk. Quirk rules. I was also a big fan of Kid Dracula. My aunt bought that, and it was amazing.
Yeah, you talk about that one a lot.
Yeah. And then obviously Mario Land 2 and 3, both of those games were absolutely killer. As far as accessory, I forgot to write this down, but I was a big fan of the thing that snapped over the top of it and had speakers and a magnifying glass on it.
Oh, yeah, that thing's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you fancy with your speakers.
Yeah. I only got... Oh, no, you first.
I had that as well, where it snapped on and like folded out, and it was a magnifying lens and a light, so you could play in the dark. But I never had the whole like speaker added on to it. I always played with my headphones. Around the time I got Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge for the Game Boy, I also picked up a Game Genie for the Game Boy. Ooh. And I don't know if you guys ever saw that, but that was gigantic as well.
Yep.
And it had it was like a 1-inch book that would like fold into a little plastic compartment on there, so you could enter the codes and carry the Game Genie book around like you used to for your NES. So that was just turning my gigantic gray brick Game Boy into another monstrosity altogether.
Into an even bigger gray brick. Yeah, I didn't have the light. Instead, I just had to lean near the window and hope for a street light and pause in between.
Oh
yeah, I didn't always love playing with the magnifying glass, so it would like fold over like a 90-degree angle so you could see the screen. I would often lift the screen up and just have the light on so I could keep playing and just holding it at a weird angle. And I would do that while I played Bionic Commando, which is probably my favorite Game Boy game of all time. It's a game that I have on my 3DS and go back through and play often. I just love the mechanics of that game, the way it all works. I think it's superior to the NES version of Bionic Commando, which most people are familiar with. And I also got to shout out Kirby's Dream Land and Motocross Maniacs, which is a game that my family all played. Like it was some weird thing. Like my mom never played video games, but she got into Motocross Maniacs and like racing and trying to go through all that. So that was always fun. And then, like you said, Mario Land 2 and 3. Like 2 is a classic. And the music in those games is just so good. Hirokazu Tanaka is a goddamn masterpiece.
Yeah.
I'm like so jealous, like hearing you guys talk about your fancy accessories for your Game Boy, because like I had the original Game Boy until I was in middle school, like the brick, like gray brick Game Boy, and I never had any accessories except somebody let me have one of their light things that they like. I don't know how it worked, but it was like a light thing that you could like plug into it, and then like it lit up.
Plugged into the link cable slot.
The link cable, yeah. And then that was it. It was just like, oh, there you go. That's it.
Like a little book light kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
So boring. I really wanted to have like a magnifying glass or something, but like so lame. But honestly, like I played that Game Boy until it literally like disintegrated into my hands. I loved playing Pokemon Blue, like Pokemon Pinball, Tetris, Harvest Moon. Like those were the only games that I really owned for the Game Boy. And I remember in middle school, I would stay up, you know, like I'd go to bed at like 10 p.m., but I'd stay up until like 5 a.m. and be like playing video games at night. And then, it's 5 a.m. I'm going to go to bed for like an hour before I have to go to school. And I did that like literally like 3 out of like the 5 days of me going to school. So I don't know how I survived.
I love how you're like, you fancy dudes with your accessories. Bro, you stayed up from 11 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. playing Game Boy. How many fucking AA batteries did you go through?
A lot.
Coming from this rich household where you can afford batteries.
Well, I mean, like we had obviously like the rechargeable like AA batteries. But like that was like when I got into middle school. Like when I was younger, it was like, oh, it died.
Oh cool. Man, I remember like that little red light would start to fade, and I'd like try to sneak out in the dark and steal the remotes from the tiny little cable remote that we had. Man, seeing that light start to fade was such a sad day.
Sad moment. Yeah, I agree.
We all mentioned the giant brick Game Boy. There were different versions of the Game Boys. Did you guys ever get any of those? Like I had the Game Boy Pocket when it came out. I remember when Pokemon Red and Blue came out, I asked for a new Game Boy because my old brick one was just like so hard to take to school because it was so big.
Yeah.
So I got the ice blue Game Boy Pocket, which I still have to this day. Same with my original brick Game Boy. But it also came with Link's Awakening, which is another game. I don't know why I didn't think about that when I'm thinking of like some of the greatest Game Boy games.
God, that game is so
arguably
good.
Just great games ever. Like Link's Awakening. If you ain't played it, what the hell's wrong with you?
I don't know.
It's on the Switch. And you would love the Switch version too. Like it's so cartoony and cute. And if you like classic Zelda version, you need to do it.
Yeah. Also, you shouted out Pokemon Pinball, which is such a good call because that game is both a game and an accessory because it had the weird rumble thing on it.
Oh, the rumble bumpers. Yeah, I remember that.
So weird.
Great.
Yeah. To answer your question there, Zando, I had the brick, and then my aunt got the hot pink pocket one.
Nice.
And then later down the road, I feel like we got the Game Boy Color in green, I think.
Fancy.
And then I got a Game Boy Advance later on. But in my mind, that's another console.
Yeah, no, I just count as far as the original Game Boy. It's the brick Game Boy. It's the colored brick Game Boys, the Game Boy Pockets, the Game Boy Pocket Colors, and then, of course, the Game Boy Color itself.
Yeah.
Good old Nintendo naming schemes, which is not confusing at all.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But man, Pokemon Pinball, they came
so good.
Freaking ruled.
Yeah, I got an emulator recently, like one of those like Game Boy-esque devices, and it didn't come with Pokemon Pinball, and I was like so upset. I was like, I have to delete everything that's on here and just download Pokemon Pinball right now.
God, it was so good.
Well, while you're downloading Pokemon Pinball, get Link's Awakening too, man. Come on.
Yeah, what am I doing?
Yeah. All right, so after the Game Boy came out, there were a whole bunch of other handhelds. What are some of your favorites? And also, are there any weirdos out of that list that you loved? I want to go first here. I had a Game Gear. And you want to talk about burning through batteries? That motherfucker burned through batteries. But we never had any like killer games for it, so I don't really remember it like super fondly. I remember I went to a Cub Scout sleepover, and some kid there had the Atari Lynx, which was this crazy handheld that had buttons on both the top and the bottom of the right-hand side, and you could flip the whole system if you were left-handed, so the D-pad was under your right hand and the buttons were under your left. Absolutely insane.
But very accessible.
Yes, and he had Bonk's Adventure on it, and that was awesome, and he had a TV tuner for that son of a bitch, and that was also amazing. But I'm not going to lie. Mostly this episode is an excuse to talk about the Game.com because I love that son of a bitch so much. Also, Game.communist, people are striking. Don't be a scab. Don't support any organizations that are producing content that are under SAG rules and or the UAW. Hey, we stand with unions. We stand unions, in fact. Game.communist over. Game.com fucking ruled. It was like this little guy. It was like a PDA. It had 2 console slots in it. It had a touch screen. It came with lights out built into it. It was absolutely insane. It was made by Tiger Electronics. It did not catch on at all. But I loved it.
I was gonna say I've never heard about it until like right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw it out there, but like Tamagotchis, like best handheld of all time. I took multiples of those motherfuckers' place.
Now, hold on a second. Hold on a second. You just called the Tamagotchi the best handheld of all time.
Yes.
They're not even the best digital pet of all time. The Digimon was so much better because you could fight them against other people who had Digimon.
But you get to clean up the poop of your Tamagotchis.
I mean,
it's kind of cool.
If you're talking cutest handheld of all time, I might give you that.
All right, fair. It is pretty cute.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the living crap out of all of my Tamagotchis. I had like...
Well, then you cleaned it up.
Two. I did clean it up.
I love when they would get stink lines and you'd have to bathe them.
Yes, I agree. Or there was one time one of my friends like went on vacation or something like that, and she was just like, "Oh, like watch over my Tamagotchi," and it was like only like a week old or something like that, and I forgot one day, and that thing died, and it had like the little like angel wings and like the halo over its head, and I was like, "Oh, this is so sad." Reset. But the other handheld that I really, really enjoyed was the Nintendo DS because like you had two screens. And it was cool because there were some games that you could like, instead of playing it normally, you could like flip it on its side and then use one side of it as like a regular screen and then the other side as like a touchpad. So there was like games like Brain Age is something that my parents bought me because they wanted me to be educated. But like I learned how to play like Sudoku through it and like other types of like logical games. And I think like Pickle Cross was like also on it, and that was just amazing on the Nintendo DS. So good.
Yeah, I think the Nintendo DS Lite may be my favorite handheld of all time until the Steam Deck. Just because of like the it could play Game Boy Advance games as well. Like it had that slot at the bottom where you could pull that out and play the Game Boy Advance games, which the Game Boy Advance was just a portable Super Nintendo. And Super Nintendo is one of my favorite gaming consoles of all time. So that was also neat. The whole touch generation thing that Nintendo had where it started with Brain Age and then went into like Nintendogs and stuff like that. Like I used to have a little holster on my belt that I would wear all the time. It was like a fanny pack, but it had my DS in there. And I was carrying always at least like 20 to 30 games. And it was when I was working at Circuit City at the time. And I would just walk around the game section with this giant thing on my hip. And it was cool because like I loved playing all the different games. I would grab like Cooking Mama, like whatever games would come out for it, I would grab. Because I was working full time at a retail shop and living with my parents. So, disposable income. And it was neat when the customers would be like, I kind of want to, I'm looking for this game for my son. But I don't know if it's any good. I'd pull my DS out and be like, here you go. You want to try it? Like, let them go for it. I was just like a walking demo station from the Nintendo DS. And I love
such a good salesman.
That's amazing.
I also love my PS Vita as an emulation machine again, until I got my Steam Deck. But as long as we're just shouting out weird, handhelds, I feel like we're missing out by not talking about the Nokia N-Gage. Just the greatest gaming system ever.
I totally forgot that was a thing. I do a Google.
God,
but yeah, as far as if we're not just going to go down the entire line of all the Nintendo handhelds, then I think just shouting out the DS Lite and just all the different games that are on their Trauma Center, where you are just a surgeon trying to learn how to do things, and someone crashes their motorcycle, you have to go in and pull all the glass out with a touchscreen, like all that random stuff.
Good. So good.
I never had any of the DSs.
You are missing out.
I skipped all of them.
It was like so technologically advanced because I feel like it was like the first game console that has a touchscreen, and so that was like super novel because then like you could do other stuff on another screen. Yeah, you could pet your dog. Like in Harvest Moon, you can like pet your cows and like milk your cow.
Yeah, Advance Wars Dual Strike, where you could have sea and air battles going on at the same time on this. It was so cool, man.
I mean, I'm not saying it was, but that was at the point where I was like just moving out and living on my own, and
that's
so I
fair.
had no disposable income.
Yeah. That's where I missed the stuff like the Game.com, the Atari Lynx, the Sega Nomad, like all those random handhelds that did come out. I was I was at the mercy of my parents' wallet at the time, and they weren't about to spend that kind of money on me.
Yeah.
Had they come out when I was in my early 20s, I would have got them.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a time period when my hobbies were crime. Anyway, handheld gaming has taken on a weird identity since smartphones have come out. There's been a variety of like handheld emulators, handheld PCs, but none of these devices have really caught on in the way that like mainstream handheld devices used to. What do you think it would take for one of these devices to catch on to the mainstream?
I mean, in terms of like gamers, I think these devices have caught on in the mainstream. But I don't know, like in terms of just like people in general, I feel like games are always going to be a divisive thing. Like, oh, that's a thing I gave up when I hit puberty, bro. Let me beat you up now. Like that's how I feel like a lot of games are looked at, which I mean, hopefully is changing. I feel like it is changing because they're like, I just like my daughter's in kindergarten, and one of her kindergarten friends, like her mom was like, we were all playing Mario Kart the other day. It was like this little girl, like, girls didn't play video games when I was little. What the hell is this? So I'm hoping that, like the mainstream is a thing that the games are going to get into. And I think the Nintendo Switch is going to kind of lead the way with that. And then as far as handheld emulators, like that's just going to be a niche thing. Like PC gaming is as popular as it is still not as popular as like a PlayStation or an Xbox or all that. But I think it's going to take something like, I mean, we're going to gush about the Steam Deck here in a little bit, like the Steam Deck to kind of get people to realize the possibilities that they have, and then that'll all take off.
Yeah, sure. I think maybe I didn't word this question accurately. I'm talking specifically about like those niche devices. Like, what would it take for those to become more ubiquitous, right? And to take on like where the Switch or the Steam Deck is. And in my mind, I think the problem is it doesn't make sense for people to carry more than one device that can do the same thing. Right.
That's fair.
And because cell phones are gaming devices, they're definitely the number one market share when it comes to handheld devices you can play games on. I feel like all of the like other handheld things have fallen off drastically. In much the same way that like nobody carries a point and shoot camera, right? Because the cell phone can do that also. If you're going to have one, it's going to be a specialized thing that can do things that your cell phone can't. And that, I feel that market is taken up by like the Switch and the Steam Deck. However, these little emulation devices, they're a joy. They're really fun, right? But I think that they'd have to be one of two things to actually catch on. Either so novel that it's worth it to carry them around. Like I've seen like a little like quarter size, like the size of a quarter device that like is a keychain that can run like Super Nintendo games on it. Like that's cool enough that somebody might want to carry that around. Or, like if it were something that could integrate into something else that I already carry. Like there are some emulators out there that are also phone cases, but they all suck right now.
Yeah.
If there was like a really good emulation device that was also a cell phone case, I could see getting that case and putting it on my phone. Because now I'm not carrying around an extra thing. I'm just carrying the thing that I normally have. And it happens to have this baller ass emulator on it. Right. And I could see that happening. But I don't think people are going to be carrying around like a Miu Mini or that sort of thing. Unless, I guess maybe if you have like a commute or something like that, where it's like, I really want to play Final Fantasy while I'm on the train. But we live in an area where there is no good public transit. And so that really isn't something I think about. But thinking about it now, maybe if you live in an area with really solid public transit, I could see getting one of these devices. So that way it's just like, oh, great. I play it. I put it in sleep mode. When I hit my stop, I'm done.
Maybe. But like, I also feel like for those commutes and for most people who will play on mobile devices, like those games are more casual than it is serious games. Like it's something that there's a quick turnaround time. Like the gameplay is only maybe like, I don't know, like a minute, or it's one of those games where like, like I'm going to sit here and then, do whatever and then wait like 4 hours to check in on it again to see if I can collect something and then do something else in that game. But honestly, like I feel like most gamers are not hardcore gamers. They are casual gamers. So any device that kind of tailors itself to a more hardcore gamer where the games are long and I don't know, like difficult,
Involved.
I'm going to say, yeah, like evolved. I don't know if a lot of people would really get into it. I think gamers are a very unique breed of people in an attention span, honestly. And on top of that too, like, you know, all these devices, one, they have to be cost effective for the person to buy it. Like, yeah, it could be like $10, but like what type of value does that handheld actually have? Because like a lot of these game like the Switch, for instance, and the Steam Deck, like there are lots of games for them, right? So like and new games. So they'll buy that specific like console and then be able to play like Call of Duty or something of that nature, like something that's like relatively new. And if there's consoles out there that can't do it, I don't think that there would be any type of mainstream appeal.
Yeah. I think that's a good point.
I think it's also, it would involve one of the big gaming companies to get involved with it. Like with most people who are casually playing games on their phone, if you were to say, hey, is there a way that you could, or would you be excited about a way to play Mario Brothers, you know, on the go or whatever? And oh yeah, that would be great. But then you have to get Nintendo involved, and Nintendo's not going to get involved because it's going to take away from their other things.
For sure.
You know, I think you need to find something that is easily accessible, like the emulation thing. Like most people aren't going to want to like hunt down the emulation websites and then see all the different ads and have to search through to find what they want to play what's on there. So I think it's going to take a company making it accessible and cheap, which is a hard fight.
Totally hard.
Yeah, it is. Now, all of that being said, Mel, you and Xando have already alluded to the fact that the Switch and the Steam Deck have in fact broken through, right? I would consider both of these to be mainstream successes. It's interesting, though, because they are very, very different devices, but they've both been able to achieve success where so many others have failed. Why do you think that is, comparing the two of them, contrasting the two of them to all of these other game systems that haven't been able to break through and to one another?
Well, I think in the case of the Switch, it was kind of the only mainstream handheld option,
for sure,
and the versatility was a huge thing. You know, people kind of saw that gaming wasn't such like a nerdy thing when the Wii came out, and they saw how it was like a casual experience, and they liked the motion controls and all that. And now you've got this device that you can take with you, can sit on any table, and everybody can play. It's this whole kind of cool accessibility thing. And then like just being able to go from playing a full game on your TV screen wherever you're at, and then being able to pick it up and go. I knew like as soon as they showed that trailer, I was like, oh, this is going to be such a great thing. I can't wait to play with it. And then the thing is like when I got it and I was playing Breath of the Wild at home and I got that rumbly in my tumbly and I'm like, oh man, I got to go to the bathroom. I need to pause this game. I don't have to pause this game. And like clicked those Joy-Cons on and pulled it out and kept going like without skipping a beat. It was a beautiful moment. Like it's something that I don't think I'll ever forget in my gaming life. Like
a beautiful
I was just on my TV, right? You know, it's no longer like, hey, I'm playing this game on my TV. I got to pause. Where's my DS? Now I'm going to go to the bathroom, you know?
Sure.
So, and for the Steam Deck, I think having the biggest PC platform backing it might have had something to do with its success of breaking through the mainstream. But I still have, like, I go to pick up my daughter and I was playing Sea of Stars on my Steam Deck and these kids are coming up like, what's that thing? Is that a Switch? Like, nope. You dumb kid. It's a Steam Deck.
Then he slaps him.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I have stopped trying to understand Nintendo's success. I know that their characters are a force to be reckoned with, right? I know that the games that they make are absolutely amazing, but they do basically everything wrong and they still somehow manage to succeed. And that is fucking wild to me. The fact that the Switch doesn't have like integrated voice chat is like, it's 10 years behind everything else, right? It's absolutely ludicrous. The fact that the console only supports 720p basically is like, what are you doing? You know, like there's all of these insane choices. And so I'm not going to lie. I think the casual nature of it, I think the fact that they're able to capitalize off of the success of the Wii and kind of like translate that over. Like, oh, didn't you really like Mario Party on the Wii? Didn't you really like Smash Brothers on the Wii? Oh, you could play those games again. Like, I honestly feel like that is the only thing that is keeping Nintendo's head above water here. Like, the Switch, looking at it from a specs standpoint, is an absolute garbage system. But most people don't give a shit about that. To Mel's point, most people are casual gamers. Most people have like 4 or 5 games that they really want to play, and they're willing to buy the system that will do that. And for a ton of like younger gamers, that game is Fortnite. You can play that on anything. The Switch is the cheapest thing you can play it on. They're going to get the Switch, right? So that's kind of the thought process around why the Switch was able to succeed. I think the Steam Deck is the exact opposite. I think the Steam Deck specs are absolutely outstanding. I think the fact that most people who buy a Steam Deck, this is not the first interaction they have had with Steam, to your point. I think that, you know, how smooth it is and how easy it is to use, but with this insane customizability, the capabilities of handheld PCs that are twice the cost of it, like, it is truly a marvel that Valve was able to release this system at this price point with these specs. It is absolutely outlandish. And so that word of mouth is so strong amongst gamers that it's like, I'm not going to say I was peer pressured into buying a Switch, but the only reason I bought mine is because everybody I talked to about it had nothing but great things to say.
Had FOMO.
I'm sorry, a Steam Deck. I said a Switch. A Steam Deck. Everybody who talks about the Steam Deck loves the fucking Steam Deck. I bought a Steam Deck. I wish I would have bought it a year earlier. My wife and I are out of our house for 4 months because of insane home renovations. And I was able to like go to my friend's house, hook it up to their 720p TV, and use the Steam Dock that I got. And boom, I have a console and it rules.
Yeah. It is fantastic. I love my Steam Deck so much, and I'm like so happy that it like actually proved itself after Valve creating very, very shitty physical products.
Fumbled like, so many balls.
Yeah. But I'm glad that they've like learned from it, and they like tried to make something that was going to be very easy for people to use for most gamers who aren't necessarily into customizing like their own PC or building their own PC and like configuring it all. They actually just built an interface that's just like, oh, you have a Steam account? Like just download your games from your Steam account on your console and have fun. And I think that's great. I think that accessibility for most hardcore gamers that aren't necessarily computer people, like, can actually just like enjoy. And, you know, going back to talking about the Switch, you know, honestly, the only reason why I think the Switch it does as well as it does is not only because of like your guys' opinions, but like the branding of Nintendo and its games and how proprietary it is, that they will only sell their games and you can only play their games on their consoles is probably what makes it so that like it becomes more mainstream, because there's no other way that you can like access that game, period.
Yeah, that's a good point. The branding for the Switch to me as a hardcore gamer is absolutely hilarious. Same. The idea that somebody is taking their fucking Switch to a rooftop bar and playing like Mario Kart 8 while they're like out with friends is insane to me. If you are the person who is doing that, please get on our Discord. I have 100,000 questions to ask you.
I mean, like sometimes, like if I go to a party with like some of my close friends, right? Like there's 20 of us. Like sometimes we'll all just bring our Switch or something like that, and we'll play like Mario Kart, right? Like or like Jackbox on it, because like it's just very accessible for everybody.
Yeah, but you're not at a rooftop bar.
True. That's true. I'm not going out in public just trying to be like, yo, guys, like I got my Switch here.
Yeah, that launch trailer of like going to like an under the overpass basketball court and like everybody's playing Switch instead. That's a wild life.
Yeah.
Like, the other thing about the Switch that I wish they would have done, like Nintendo, we've kind of just cemented that they run on nostalgia, right? So they have this chance to bring this brand new portable system and go take it back to the Game Boy name, you know? how cool would it have been that this device that you can take on the go or play in your home would have been called the Homeboy? I'm getting a Nintendo Homeboy. I get it. You can switch it from TV to handheld, whatever. I want a Nintendo Homeboy. I hope that's what the next one is called.
Interesting.
I'm not going to lie. I thought you were going to say Switch Boy, and that sounds like a thing you should not Google.
No, you shouldn't call it a Switch Boy. You should call it a Homeboy, which is
Homeboy's pretty good.
What we should just call it from now on.
Homeboy Switch.
Smash Brothers on the Homeboy. No, not Homeboy Switch, just Homeboy.
Well, we could switch it out from taking it home to somewhere else, though.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Is that why they call it a Switch now? Because you can switch it from console to a handheld.
No,
I love that revelation. Like 6 years later.
I need to go.
Almost 7. We're almost reaching year 7 of the Switch. In March, it'll be 7 years. That's a wild thing to think about.
This is an audio medium, but Mel just had like a mind-blowing epiphany. Like her eyes got all wide. She's like holding her head in her hand.
I'm like
I don't know if this is Mel's video feed or the Captain Picard facepalm thing right now.
No, I'm like seriously sweating because I just realized that now.
Yep.
All right. Moving on. So in addition to like Switch and the Steam Deck, there are all of these new devices that are coming out that are trying to capitalize on the like recent handheld craze, and they're doing it wrong because they're either cloud gaming devices or the PlayStation Portal, which used to be known as the Project Q. What is your opinion on these?
I think it's interesting that Nintendo did all the field work of we've got the Wii U, and that failed miserably, and now PlayStation's giving it a shot. I don't see like why you would waste the time on a cloud device like that's basically useless as soon as you're like not next to the device that it's tethered to.
The PlayStation Portal is the dumbest technology that I think I have ever heard of. It is a device that acts as a tiny screen for your PlayStation. But like if somebody's playing the PlayStation, you can't use the tiny device.
So yeah, like I said, it's a Wii U gamepad for your PS5.
It's basically just a TV that you can hold in your hand. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard of.
So you can't even do like multiplayer. So like let's say that you're doing like couch co-op. One person could be in the couch, one person could be like in a different room. They can't play together.
The idea is that your TV is being watched by the other members of your family, but you really want to play your PS5. So here you can buy this broken PS5 controller, slap it on the side of this Switch screen, and then you can play your PS5 while your friends watch or while your family watches TV.
You could be that weirdo who's like, I don't want to watch the movie with all of you. I've got to play, I don't know, God of War or whatever.
I'm
not
sorry.
When I had my Wii U, I used that all. Like my wife would be watching Grey's Anatomy, and I would just keep on playing whatever I was playing on the Wii U, and that was great. That was a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But to spend like if I had a PlayStation 5, and granted I'm a full grown adult here, and I'm in my own house and all this stuff. Like if I'm gonna have a PlayStation 5, it's gonna be hooked up to a TV that I can use when I want to use it, and not be at the mercy of somebody else.
Well, you know what else you can do? Everything that a Project Q PlayStation Portal can do it with? A fucking smartphone or a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Literally any of them. Literally anything.
It is remote play. Yep. I remember being in when I was still in college, just go like I would bring my laptop and then I would remote play my PlayStation from it. In between classes.
My favorite thing about this is PlayStation just released all these new tiers, and one of them allows you to do cloud streaming via PC, right? So if you're on your PlayStation, it'll download the game. But if you're playing from your PC, it'll actually just do cloud streaming. The PlayStation Portal does not have the capability to utilize that function. It can literally only connect to the PlayStation and do remote play that way. And also, it doesn't even have Bluetooth. If you want to get wireless headphones for them, you have to buy specific Sony wireless headphones that connect to it. It's the dumbest shit.
Sony loves proprietary hardware, man.
Which is fine, but like you have to make it somewhat valuable for your customer, right? Like this is all sorts of just nonsense and like just backwards technology and thinking in terms of like, being a gamer.
Yeah, that was one of the worst parts about the Vita was like having those specific Vita memory cards. And if you were trying to buy them after the fact, good luck, because if you wanted even like a 56 or like I can't even remember the size of it. It was something. It was like a 2 gig is like $60 still, like to this day. It's insane the proprietary Sony stuff. So I do not foresee the PlayStation Portal being a success.
Yeah.
I think it'll be one of those things that'll go clearance, just like the PlayStation Home did, that some people will buy and store, and then maybe one day they'll sell them on eBay and make a slight profit, or at least their money back.
Maybe, if you're lucky. Then there's also like the Logitech G Cloud, which is literally has no processor or anything in it to like play games on it. It's just like an Android smartphone with a controller that is designed to like connect to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate or what's the NVIDIA one? NVIDIA Now. Yeah, like those sorts of things. And that's all it does. And it's $299.
How did we not learn from fucking Stadia? Because literally this is it, right? Like this is like almost identical to Google Stadia.
Yep. But worse. And $300.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think the people in the know won't buy it. It won't be supported. Obviously, won't be supported casually. I think there's going to be a lot of people who will buy it thinking, "Sweet, PlayStation Portable." Oh fuck, nope.
Yeah,
and then try to return it, but they can't because it's gaming hard. Like it's a bad move on Sony's part. I don't understand why they're doing this.
It's like the worst thing. Yeah. All right. Speaking of worst things. There's few things that are worse than war. And that leads us directly into our sponsored question. This question is brought to us by the Gulf War Game Boy. That's right. There was a Game Boy that just survived a bombing in the literal Gulf War. And it still works to this day. It's all like black and charred, but it's still working. It's like plugged in a museum somewhere. As grown-ass adults, we have all gone through a metaphorical bombing. And we are still moving. AKA, we're all old as hell. We can afford TVs for our PlayStations, but we can never get our knees back. If you could go back and tell your younger self, who was just given their first portable gaming system, anything about the future of portable gaming, what would you say?
Oh man, this is such a hard thing. I would just tell myself like, hey, eventually you're going to be able to play Super Nintendo games and all this other stuff on your own thing. So don't worry about missing out on that Sega Nomad. I know you want it so bad, but don't bother asking for it. It's all going to get so much better.
Dang. Mine was kind of like the opposite because I would like tell my younger self like play like all these older games because it won't feel the same on newer devices because it doesn't have that same like nostalgic feeling. You know what I mean? Like it's just I'm playing these old games, but like sometimes it doesn't render properly because the computer is just too fast, you know?
Because Nintendo chose to use the wrong emulator for their own software.
Oh, so I forgot to tell my younger self, buy every special edition console that Nintendo comes out with because you'll make your money back.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
I kind of cheated here. The first thing, I'm going to say two things. The first one is to buy Apple stock, since one day later they'll make a really baller mobile gaming service one day. And so, then I would have millions probably. And then also I would tell myself that when you see that discounted Wonder Swan at Masquerade Games, which was our local import store, buy it because you will never see another one in your whole life. Ooh. And the store will go out of business by the time you try to go back. So,
two more things. I would go back and tell Xando when you buy that Game Boy Advance for the first time, keep it with you the entire first night when you're at your friend's house because one of your friends is not your friend and he's going to steal it from you. You're never going to get it back. Also, when you finally get your Game Boy Advance SP, don't fucking lay on the ground. That's a dumb idea. You're going to break your screen and then you're not going to have one. You stupid idiot. I had such bad luck with Game Boy Advances.
Somebody stole your Game Boy Advance?
Day one. Yes. Yeah. So day one, the game comes out. Me and three buddies, like we all decide, hey, Game Boy Advance is coming out. It's the last day of school. This is going to be awesome. Let's hang out, get pizza, watch movies, and play our Game Boys together. 3 out of the 4 of us had Game Boy Advances. The next morning, mine was gone. And we could never prove that the other kid took it. Like we flipped my buddy's house upside down looking for this thing. And the kid that didn't have a Game Boy Advance, it was a known thief and just ripped a bunch of people off all the time. But I went to his house. I had my brother who was 8 years old. Like at the time, he was like studying law stuff, and like we were like trying to press hard. Like, hey, we need to get this thing back. Like this is going to be a big deal, and we could never prove that he took it. So I was just without a Game Boy Advance like from day 2 until some friends of mine got together and like got me one as a birthday gift. But that was the worst feeling ever.
What a horrible human being!
Dude, you're not wrong. Scumbag.
I hope he had a horrible childhood.
Oh, he did. Because that's why he grew up to be the kind of dick who stole a Game Boy Advance from his quote unquote friend the day it came out.
I want to punch him.
That sucks.
Yeah. Sorry to bring this whole thing down on the silly question.
That's fine.
No, it's okay.
You live, you learn. And then as an adult, you go back in time, and that's what you use your time to do, is to tell yourself not to lose the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, also try to punch him, too, while you're back in, during that time,
I honestly, if I had the ability to go back and do something portable gaming related, it wouldn't be talking to myself. It'd be being 6.5 feet tall, 300 some odd pounds, and beating the snot out of this little kid.
Sorry, I should not be laughing at that, but
no, it's pretty funny.
I don't know if you heard me say he stole it the day I got it.
The idea of Xando just like picking up a child and throwing him into a river is amazing.
Hulk style.
Yeah. Just over it.
I just park a car outside of the house because he was the first one to leave in the morning. As he walks out,
of course he was.
Hey there.
Just wait.
What's that in your pocket, friend?
Oh,
is that a Glacier White Game Boy Advance with Super Mario Advance 2 in there? Why don't you go and put it back downstairs and then come back out here? I got something for you.
Absolutely amazing. So if you are listening to this and you have a child that you wish you could beat up, put it in the Discord, I guess. Holy shit.
Put names and addresses in the Discord, and if we ever get this ability to go back in time, we're going to go Jay and Silent Bob style and just go door by door.
But also for legal purposes, we would never do such a thing.
Yeah.
For legal purposes, Mel wouldn't. I'm doing it. I don't care. I want Jean-Claude Van Damme and the rest of the time cops to come get me.
Oh, man. Anybody got anything else to say about handheld gaming on the go, that sort of things?
Yo, gaming on the go is the most real when you can plug in your N64 to your van's drop down TV thing. That is true gaming on the go.
Oh, Shout out to those guys who bought those screens for their GameCubes and Xboxes and played that way.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, I had a friend who had a souped up car, and he hooked a PlayStation up to his in-dash display, and it was great because it was 280p. So,
yeah, I remember working at a car dealership. We had this fancy car come in that had a screen in the dashboard, and this was back before this was the norm, and it had AV inputs. Oh man, hang on a second, guys. And I just went out to my car because I had it was the day after I went to some friend's house, and I still had my PlayStation in there with Street Fighter, and I just loaded up, and I'm sitting in this Cadillac playing Street Fighter. They're what are you doing? You're supposed to be working. I was I'm just making sure this works. I still have a picture of that somewhere, me playing Street Fighter Alpha 3 in some random Cadillac.
You gotta find it now.
Yeah,
I will.
Yeah, you gotta. Oh man, absolutely amazing. We didn't talk about how crazy it is that you can straight up put Cuphead on your Tesla and stuff like that. That is also
True.
absolutely insane. That's some pimp my ride shit for no good reason.
Agreed.
Oh, man. All right, cool. Anything else we want to talk about when it comes to mobile gaming?
Huh?
I think that pretty well covers it.
Great. Tell the people where you can be found.
I can be found traveling through time and beating up kids. Also in the Discord is Zando Calrissian.
I am Melephant. You can find me on the Discord and on Blue Sky as Melephant.
I'm a 20-sided ninja. I am in the Discord and Blue Sky and a bunch of other places as a 20-sided ninja. If you see it in a 20-sided ninja, just send me a friend request. I'll be your friend on Steam. I don't care. I'll be your friend on Xbox Game Pass. It's cool. I'm a 20-sided ninja in all of those places. It's a delight. You want to play Fortnite with me? I can't for the next 4 months. But after that, Epic Game friend me. I don't care. I'm here. Unless you're Dan. Dan, fuck you, Dan. But everybody else, friend me. All right. Special shout out to our Patreons. Thanks so much for doing what you do, giving us your support. You're what help keep the podcast free. If you have friends that you think would like this, let them know. The only way we advertise is word of mouth and going back in time and beating up thieves. And they're not telling anybody. So we need your help on that. You guys got anything else to say?
Yeah, we're also, please join our Discord because we are doing a Super OK Discord emote contest and submissions are open until October 20th. So we would love for you to drop in, put up an emote for us to vote on. And at the end of October, we will vote and, your emote could be a part of Super OK history.
Forever. All right, I'm done. Everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Goodbye. Hope you have a super good day. Thanks for listening. Bye.